Minister Joly, thank you for being with us today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Listen, I want to begin here with your appearance before our Commons Committee this week, because the committee members, they really wanted to know about these reports of Chinese meddling in the 2019 election. I'm wondering what you might be able to share with people who are watching this interview right now about that incident or incidences of interference.
Well, I answered the committee yesterday, as mentioned by the Prime Minister, as mentioned by the NSIA, Jody Thomas, as mentioned also by my colleague Dominique Leblanc. We have no information regarding such interference, foreign interference in the 2019 elections. Of course, we take this issue extremely seriously because obviously it's in our own public interest, our own shared interest to address this issue, but we don't have any information to that regard.
So you don't know, for example, whether or not it's just limited to the 2019 vote or whether or not it's just limited to those dozen or so ridings and candidates?
Well, you know, we have no information to that regard. What I can tell you, though, is before the 2019 elections, we had concerns regarding foreign interference, particularly in light of what had happened in other democracies. And when I think about foreign interference, I particularly think about disinformation online, and which is affecting all democracies. And we know already that China and Russia is undergoing proactive disinformation online campaigns to destabilize many democracies, including ours. And so that's why we put into place an important process, which is headed by nonpartisan experts. And they also said that in 2019 there was no foreign interference. And so that is why the story that came out regarding this 2019 possible foreign interference is important, but at the same time, we need to have evidence. And right now, I don't have that evidence. The Prime Minister doesn't have that evidence. Our public service and national security agencies, including CSIS, don't have that intelligence. So that's the information I can provide you today.
Mm-hmm. So I do wonder then, because you did meet with your Chinese counterparts on the sidelines, but you did meet with them when you were in Bali for the G20. So what did you say to them regarding interference? If you did not have specifics, what were you actually talking to them about?
Well, definitely disinformation online, because we know that there is proactive disinformation happening. And I said in general that foreign interference is not tolerable in Canada. We just won't accept it. And so it was not a conversation. I looked at him in the eye, and that's what I told him. So this is what we do in diplomacy. We actually give tough messages sometimes, and sometimes we are much more in collaboration mode. But when it comes to foreign interference, this is about the strength and the viability of our own democracy. So basically our position is the same with every single country, period.
Now, as we talk about China, you know, of course, you did unveil a new Indo-Pacific strategy at the end of November. You described China during that announcement as a disruptive global power. And that really is a huge shift, because back in 2017, your government described China as an important partner. So is your strategy now an acknowledgement that China is no longer a friend?
Well, clearly, China has interests that depart from our interests. And China works every day more and more to either violate international norms, or I would say also bend international norms in their favor. There are two schools of thoughts which are in opposition right now. The one that is the one that basically President Putin is abiding by, which is essentially international norms do not and should not be, how can I say, followed, because he believes that being a nuclear power and having a sphere of influence is more important. And at the same time, there's us and our allies, and actually many countries around the world, which are about really protecting international norms. Canada has been an architect of developing these international norms following the Second World War. These norms have kept us safe since that time, and we need to make sure that we work obviously with our friends, obviously with our allies, but also with many other countries which have in common with Canada the protection of the UN Charter and also the protection of the basic principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity, which are at the core of the world's stability.
So if we are diverging in philosophies, then what does that mean for something like the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank? As you know, Conservatives have been raising that issue for years now. They basically say at this point that Liberals are talking the talk, not walking the walk. What does it mean for the future of Canada's involvement with that bank? Is it done? Is it going to wrap up?
Well, what we've done, we've addressed this issue in the Indo-Pacific strategy, and I know the Minister of Finance also is on this. But what I can tell you, though, is that in the Indo-Pacific strategy, what we decided to do is to invest even more in bilateral support and bilateral infrastructure support. So we decided to put $750 million into an infrastructure fund through FinDev, and that will be helpful for countries across the region that are in need of infrastructure, particularly infrastructure that deal with the impacts of climate change. I'm thinking of the Philippines, I'm thinking about Vietnam, about India, and definitely also about Indonesia and Singapore. So these are just countries that we will engage with regarding this very issue.
But will you divest yourself of the investment bank, though? Again, that's a 1% share, to my understanding, that Canada has, but it is a bank in league with China. Will we divest ourselves out of that bank?
Well, what we said regarding that bank also is, since many countries, including European counterparts, are part of it, we want to make sure that all our investments are well taken care of, and at the same time follow the basic guidelines of international norms. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we increase our influence in the region, and that's why we're investing even more money through FinDev and that infrastructure fund.
Mm-hmm. In terms of the ownership of the bank, though, is that something to be debated in future?
Of course, everything that goes against our national security will guide, our national security will guide our decisions, and anything that goes against national security, of course, will take the right decisions.
Okay. Listen, I also want to talk about Haiti because the Prime Minister, as you well know, wants European countries to join Canada and sanction Haitian players who have ties to gangs that have been terrorizing the country. How important are those sanctions? How important is it that Europe get on side with what Canada has already done?
Well, sanctions in Haiti against the political and the economic elite are extremely important. Canada has been, I would say, forward-leaning when it comes to imposing sanctions. Our goal is definitely to make sure that the US imposes more sanctions, the Europeans as well. And I'm having important discussions with my counterparts to that regard, because we think this will create enough pressure on those that are benefiting from the violence that is spread by the gangs throughout Haiti. And so it is a new way to put pressure. It has never been done, but there's no impunity for those who support the gangs. And there's no impunity for also the ones in charge of the gangs. So we know that the Haitian people are right now suffering in Haiti. We want to be there to help them. We will be there to help them. But of course, we will support any solutions as long as they're Haitian-led and also by and for Haitians.
Well, to that, Ambassador Bob Rae did brief your government on his mission to Haiti. We know there is a desire. In fact, we heard it from the U.S. Secretary of State when he was standing right beside you here in Ottawa. There's this desire for Canada to lead a multinational effort in Haiti. Do you think, based on what you heard from Ambassador Rae, do you think there is a role for Canada to play?
Of course there's a role for Canada to play in Haiti, and we're playing it right now through our sanctions, through our humanitarian aid, but also through having this important conversation about the security of Haiti. Canada has been a long-time friend to Haiti. It will continue to be. And yes, indeed, because we are a bilingual country, because we've always had a good relationship with Haitian people, because we have a big diaspora also from Haiti and Canada, we have that expertise. We have that experience. We've been involved through the UN in many of their missions, and we will continue to help the Haitians that are suffering, like I mentioned a bit earlier.
Minister, I appreciate you're very busy. Just one more question, if you don't mind. And this has to do with Ukraine, because I do want to get your thoughts. Not so much here in Canada, but right now in the United States, we're seeing a number of Republicans now starting to question the monetary commitments and support for Ukraine as this war goes on. What would you say to Canadians who may also have similar questions about the money committed by Canada to support this war effort?
Well, indeed, we've been very supportive. We believe in the importance of supporting Ukraine through military aid, through financial support, through humanitarian aid, because it is fundamental to make sure that Ukraine wins. Because the Ukrainians are right now fighting for their lives, but also fighting for their freedom and our freedom. And so by supporting Ukraine, we will make sure that we send a strong message to all these countries that even think of invading their neighbor.
Minister Joly, thank you so much. Really appreciate the time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.